here are three price scenarios that I do want to explore when it comes to Polkadot's native token called DOT in an event where maybe we do see a fully fledged type of altcoin season. Now, even though nothing I say is financial advice, the first price scenario I do want to explore is maybe the idea of DOT going to the price of $40. Now, that's around a 10x from here, and market cap, considering current circulating supply at that point, would be around $64.5 billion. Now, why wouldn't this surprise me too much? It's because I am a fan of Polkadot's fundamentals, and that's assuming if that were to even happen. And let me explain why. When it comes to Polkadot, its goal is to quite essentially connect blockchains together. Now, some people may be thinking, well, what is that even all about? Well, basically, again, it's focused on something called interoperability because a lot of projects out there, in some cases, they do lack interoperability. Now, let me explain this, right? If we take a look at a lot of blockchains, a lot of networks out there, because in some cases they're independent of one another, they cannot freely send data and value to each other. And in which case, if that is, again, the case, then that means they do lack interoperability. Now, let me use a very popular example when it comes to this. Let's take a look at Bitcoin and Ethereum. Because they're independent of one another, they can't freely send data and value to each other. Arguably, they do lack interoperability. But what steps in? Something like Polkadot. So I think Polkadot does serve a pretty amazing purpose. It's not like it's something that is kind of hyped too much, but I think it's actually pretty necessary because if I believe in this space and if I believe that there's going to be more networks, more blockchains that are going to pop up, I would assume that at least a good portion of them might want to have amazing interoperability. Who knows, right? But this is why I think Polkadot does serve a pretty amazing purpose, and I don't think it's something that's going to disappear if the fans or hype leaves because, again, the utility is actually there. However, even besides that, we have to also take a look at Kusama. Now, Kusama, sometimes people don't really care about this, but I think it is somewhat kind of integral for me to even talk about when it comes to Polkadot, because Kusama is the canary network to Polkadot. Now, what does this mean? If I were to put it in kind of like simple terms, basically projects that wish to launch on Polkadot, some of them do usually start off with Kusama. They test out the project under real economic conditions, and then maybe if it's all good to go, they could, eventually later on move on to Polkadot. Now, some people may be thinking, what is the benefit of starting with Kusama first as opposed to just going straight on to Polkadot? Well, again, many developers out there, maybe they might be on a tight budget. Arguably, who knows? So then, when it comes to Kusama, allegedly, it's cheaper to rent building space when compared to Polkadot, and also, it's allegedly easier to make changes on. So then, again, if I was just starting off as a developer or something like that, maybe the idea of kind of like testing out the waters, so to speak, when it comes to Kusama may sound a little bit more appealing as opposed to, let's say, jumping straight onto something like Polkadot, where there might allegedly be kind of this higher associated cost when it comes to maybe, let's say, renting building space, right? But then this is just kind of my mentality, the way I take a look at it, and just sort of the analogy that I have. The way I view it is that sort of Kusama is kind of like, the Robin, and then sort of Polkadot is like the Batman. It just kind of feels like Kusama's kind of the sidekick, and then Polkadot's kind of the superhero a little bit, if I were to, again, use that analogy, but this is just the way I view it. So overall, I do believe that Polkadot does serve an amazing purpose, and when it comes to DOT, maybe at the idea of $40, it wouldn't be something that would surprise me too much if, let's say, it maybe were to happen. Now, the second price scenario I want to take a look at is $45. Now, that's around an 11.4x from here, and market cap at that point would be around $72.5 billion. This is a market cap that is, I don't think too somewhat ridiculous maybe for a project of Polkadot's kind of, I think, recognition if we do ever see a fully fledged type of altcoin season, because we've seen like Dogecoin reach over $80 billion in market cap, and that was back in 2021. So imagine what maybe Dogecoin could do this time around. Now, only time will tell, but it doesn't seem something like too ridiculous. And we've even seen BNB, reach even a market cap. And I'm talking about back in 2021, like over $100 billion, again, in terms of market cap. So it's not something that I think is too massive, maybe if it were to happen. However, only time will tell. But I am a fan of Polkadot and kind of the fundamentals that it has. Now, the third price scenario that I want to take a look at when it comes to DOT is $50. Now, that's slightly over a 12.5x from here, and market cap at that point, considering current circulating supply, would be around $80 billion. Now, my mentality is this. Allegedly, currently, there's over 600 million crypto owners, so that's allegedly more than ever before in history. And if we take a look at the peak of the 2021 bull run, around 300 million crypto owners, I mean, that's a big difference right there. Not to mention, there's a lot of hype for the Bitcoin ETF, right? The Ethereum ETF. So to me, if let's say we do see a fully fledged type of altcoin season this cycle, it would not surprise me if with these factors, it might look better than, let's say, back in 2021. But this is, again, just my mindset. However, some people like to say, okay, how soon? Now, for me, I do not know the future, but at least I can take a look at some clues from the past, arguably. Like, for instance, typically altcoins, as a worst case scenario, they usually peak around 18 months after a Bitcoin halving event. So if we kind of consider how the last Bitcoin halving event happened in April of 2024, we add 18 months on top of that, that would actually mean October this year. Now, it doesn't guarantee anything, in my opinion, because, I mean, that's just based off history, but this cycle, it might be different if we ever do see a fully fledged type of altcoin season. Like, who knows? Maybe November, December, or Q1 of next year, if it does happen again. However, to me, whenever the timeline is, I just want to be holding, waiting, and just staying patient. That's about it. That's my strategy, I would like to call it. I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but I just like to keep things simple. For me, it's all about preparation for a moment in time as opposed to finding the perfect moment, if that makes sense. So I'm just dollar cost averaging, holding, and just waiting. And feel free to subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.